Good evening. My name is Isaiah Dudley, and I'm a sophomore here at Princeton High School. Welcome to Matthews Auditorium. I would like to recognize any Board of Education members, administration, and Princeton employees that are here tonight. Please stand to be recognized. Any members of the military, active or retired, please stand to be recognized. Princeton alumni, please stand for recognition. Thank you. And many thanks to our parents, community members, and students who are in attendance today. It is my pleasure to introduce our speakers this evening. Ron Chambers is president of Chambers Group, giving trusted advice on employee benefits, data security, marketing, payroll, and workshops. Britt Scares is a mortgage loan officer at West Banco. He is also a consultant and business development professional with over 30 years of experience. Both Mr. Chambers and Mr. Scares are members of the Northern Cincinnati Chamber of Commerce and partner with Princeton City Schools in our work ethic certification program. They will discuss identity theft regarding fraud, credit, banking accounts, and data breaches. They will be discussing the different types of protection that are available and what you can do to minimize your risk of being a victim of identity theft. Dr. Ronald Falsna is the Director of Student Services at Princeton City Schools. He will be sharing information about Gaggle, the software that the school uses to monitor student activity. Mr. Falsna will explain how parents can use this at home and what it means to your children. Thank you for coming tonight. You are the difference makers in our community. We appreciate you taking the time to learn about this valuable information. And as always, go Vikes.
Sure. Right. Go right. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. So I have spent, let's see, it's 2022, so back in 2013, I started getting interested in identity fraud. I'd actually been a victim myself in 2001 before anybody knew what identity fraud was. And so I went to the Fraud Risk Management Institute and got some credentials and got certified, and I have a designation as Certified Identity Theft Risk Management Specialist. It's a mouthful. But basically what it means is that they trained me on all the different types of fraud and identity theft that are happening out there so that I can come to businesses and individual people to educate them about identity theft. Because what I have found is that most people don't really understand the different forms that are in and how many there are actually. When I ask people this question, so you have to participate now, okay? When I say the words identity theft, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Just shout it out. Credit card? Social? Okay. Yeah, so, you know, credit is a big part of that, but there's many other kinds of identity theft, and we're going to touch on this. So the slides that I have here today are kind of multi-useful. A lot of times I bring this presentation into businesses and talk about it, but we're going to touch on pretty much the same thing. And I'm going to try to go fast because we've got two other gentlemen who are going to share some other important information too. So what is identity theft? That's the question. No, we'll define it, and there we go. So when somebody uses your information in a fraudulent way, there's financial gains to be had by that in many different ways, not just in the credit cards and the bank accounts and those kinds of things. So there's 5 or 6 really common types of fraud, and one of those is criminal identity theft. So I don't know if y'all can you all read that up there okay? Okay, well I'm not being able to see it so well here. But this is when someone who's arrested uses somebody else's identity to show the police, okay? Now there was a story on Fox 19 a few years ago. There was a young lady over here in Beachmont who got pulled over for a routine traffic violation, and when the police ran her driver's license, there were 2 felony warrants out for her arrest. She had been arrested for trafficking heroin, got out on bond, and did not appear for her trial date, so they issued these bench warrants. So when the police saw that in their computer, they came out and spoke to her about it. She said, yeah, that's not me. I've never been arrested in my life, right? And they said, well, is this your name? Is this your social number? Is this your birthday? Yes, yes, yes. And they said, well, that looks like that's you to us. And she says, well, you've got the wrong person. They said, well, you'll have to straighten that out when we get you down to the police station, but we're taking you in. It gets worse. She had her 2 children with her in the back seat, and they called child services, and they came and took her children right there on the side of the road. And it took the police department 7 days to figure out that this wasn't her. So she spent 7 days and nights in jail. And then she had to talk to the child services people to prove she was a fit mother. So it's just a horrible story, and I hate to start off with that, but there are many stories like that. So the question I ask people is, now that you heard that story, what does that have to do with financial gain? Not much, right? This person used someone else's identity so that they would not be detected in the criminal justice system, but it went on this other lady's record. So it's a big mess to clean up. Social Security number theft. That's when someone uses another person's Social Security number, typically for the purpose of obtaining employment or committing tax fraud. Tax fraud is always a big problem, in the early part of the year when people are filing their tax returns. And, you've probably all heard about that by now. When I started doing this back in, 03, 4, and 5, people didn't know about those things, but they're pretty well known right now. There's a lot of employment and unemployment issues going on in the world right now. People are filing for unemployment with other people's information. And when you do something like this for a living, you hear a lot of crazy stories. So not too long ago, one of my clients told me about a friend of hers who her boss, her HR person came in and said, hey, we got an unemployment claim on you. You work here, right? So it's just a lot of crazy things that you wonder how people think of these things, right? How do they think of doing these kinds of fraud? But they're very intelligent people, right? Okay, so let's move on to medical theft. This one is really scary. So this is when a thief uses your personal information to make or obtain medical insurance claims, or they go in for service in a hospital or a clinic or something like that. And there's some stories in this PowerPoint later that talks about this, where one lady discovered that her blood type had been changed on her medical records. Imagine an emergency situation where she had to have blood and somebody gave her the wrong kind of blood. There are things where folks are allergic to certain drugs and such, right? So when we first started doing these kinds of things, we had an RN working with us, and she told me that there's something that they use called contrast dye. When people get hurt in accidents, they put that in you so they can kind of see what's going on inside there, what's broken and so forth. If you're allergic to that, it can kill you. So that has to be in your medical records, right? So to me, it's the scariest one of them all is this medical one. And then there's financial fraud, where somebody uses another person's ID to get their financial information. Maybe they're using their information to get credit. You know, Britt's going to talk a little bit about those kinds of things in a few minutes. It's just the most common one because typically we don't use our social security number and birthday and driver's license readily every day. But every day we got those little cards in our wallets and purses, right? Our debit cards and credit cards that we use every single day for something. And so that information is in a lot of places. Synthetic fraud. This is one that's really interesting too because this is where thieves will take, they'll take Ron's social number, they'll take Britt's birthday, and they'll take Ron's driver's license number and create a whole new identity. And I don't know that it's got any better, Brett, but the systems can't detect that's what it is. So they get away with it. Now the IRS is starting to finally do some things about the tax fraud problem and issuing the ability for folks to have a PIN number. Before, they would only give those PIN numbers to people who were actually a victim of some kind of fraud, like income tax refund fraud. Okay? All right. So $21 billion in fraudulent claims, and there's little they can do about it. That was their own words. The average time to repair identity is estimated to be 150 hours if it's not too big of a problem. It only gets more complicated and longer to resolve when it's not detected right away. It can cost individuals thousands in lost time, money, and professional services. The number of complaints to the FTC of IRS impersonators for identity theft is up 2,300%. And another thing, by the way, since COVID came along, fraud is up about 400% in general than it was the year before. So there's a lot of things going on out there. You got to watch out for tax scams during the pandemic. This is a little bit dated, but it's still going on. Another thing is, you know, when there's like natural disasters, like there's a hurricane hitting Florida right now. There will be scammers who are trying to get in there when people are really kind of, you know, out of their normal situation and they need help. Maybe they'll be able to come in and pretend that they're a contractor or somebody with some type of assistance and get these people's personal information and then, you know, do things with it. So it's really hideous as well. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving here. I think that unemployment fraud is leading to an inaccurate taxpayer's 1099 or W-2. So here's, just to put it like this, if somebody has your information, they can go get your tax refund before you do. And this is how it happens. They're really on this like really quickly. And we all know the IRS processes millions of returns every year. So it's impossible for them to take every one and look at it. So a lot of this stuff just kind of goes by, sends out a check. And then your tax return comes in and it's already been filed, so you're not going to get your refund. So that's really bad too, because you know people usually count on their refunds for certain things at that time of the year. You know, maybe they need a new car or something. So that's just one thing there. One of the things you can do if you ever have the opportunity is to use multi-factor authentication in any of your accounts. Do it. It's just a really good thing to do. It's kind of a little bit more of a hassle, but it's a really great way to help protect all of your sensitive information. So this slide here, I've not changed this much through all these years. When we first started hearing about this, we would hear about people dumpster diving. You know, they would go through the trash and look for people's information. Sometimes you lose your wallet or purse, that's always a bad day when you lose that, or your cell phone, right? If you lose your cell phone, that's a bad day. There's phishing or fake emails to try to get you to provide personal information. People hack into your computers and mobile devices. You know, local scams like I mentioned already with the hurricane relief and so forth. But data breaches are like the #1 thing that's happening. Would you agree with that, Brett?
There's a ton of them.
They happen.
Even the credit bureaus are losing people's information.
Yeah, if you can't hear what he said, even the credit bureaus are losing people's information. So you've got some really smart people who build systems and technology, they use that help us live in this modern world. But you have really smart people who are thieves. And they're, I always say the smart people come up with ways to block people from getting in, and the bad smart people figure out ways to get around that. And it just goes on and on. So data breaches are a big thing, and there's a lot of things that people have to do, particularly if you're businesses, where you collect or store sensitive information on employees or customers and things like that. If you have that information, I always used to say you have a social responsibility to protect it, really, but you have a legal obligation to protect it now because there's state and federal laws out there that have been passed, and what I'm finding is a lot of small businesses aren't even really aware of the laws. And so that's kind of my mission, because I'm a small business guy background, and I really have a burden for those people to help educate them on what they're required to do by state and federal law. And it's not that big a deal to put some measures in place. But if you don't do it and something bad happens at your place of business, one judge told me ignorance of the law is no excuse. You can't come and say, well, I didn't know there was a law. That doesn't work, right? So if, and then this could be a small mom and pop kind of business. So I don't know if any of you all have businesses, your spouses have businesses, or your family. I just say this because I want you to be aware of it, and they can always contact me. Yeah, yours family? You have a business too? What kind of business? Say it one more time. Okay, yeah. So most people are aware of, that you have to have your credit card machines, the right kind and all that, and only keep certain amount of numbers. That's Britt's forte. He'll tell you about that. But most of those guys don't know that they have to have what I call an identity theft prevention plan, and what's required by those government agencies to comply. So I've got a handout I'm going to give you guys here in a minute, but shred everything that's got any kind of important information on it. You can't throw it away. So you want to shred things. Protect your Social Security number at all costs. If you carry it around in your wallet or your purse, that's not good, in case you lose it or somebody steals it. Don't give out personal information to folks on the phone or in an email or something like that, unless you're absolutely sure you know who you're dealing with. I don't know about you guys, but I've been getting a flood of phone calls lately for Medicare. It's up for renewal, so they call about that. And all these different Spectrum is killing me. I'm a Spectrum customer. Leave me alone. But you keep getting this, and they have auto dialers, so they just dial thousands of numbers, and there are some people who are not as tuned in to all of this kind of stuff like maybe you and I are, and they'll fall for some of this stuff. I had it happen to a good friend of mine who's a really sharp guy, but his parents are elderly, and they gave information to somebody over the phone, and the next thing you know, they were at their bank taking their money. So it's a bad situation. Monitor your accounts for transactions. I look at my bank account every morning. It's one of the first things I do. I just made it a habit, and I've caught a few different times where a transaction came through that was bogus. And here's why these kind of things happen. There have been so many data breaches over the years. Like Britt just said, the credit repositories are getting...
Equifax,
Yeah, the IRS, the state of Ohio, Target, Home Depot. It just goes on and on and on. So I tell people, I got bad news for you. Your information's already been stolen. Everybody's information has probably been stolen by someone. And so we can't prevent the theft of data. That's never going to happen. The thieves are too clever. It's big business. They can do it from a foreign country. They don't even have to be here. So we have to do things on our own to help minimize the opportunity for folks and protect ourselves. Let's see, where am I? Never respond to emails asking to verify personal information. Don't do things online unless you're on your own computer. That's one of my pet peeves is people go to Starbucks and Panera Bread and they're on their Wi-Fi with their laptops. And if they've got information, their personal information in their laptop, that's not a good practice. Okay? There we go. Don't use your cell phone or PDA to store personal information, period. That's what I recommend. Keep your computer browser software up to date. I have mine on auto update. You know, you don't have to be a genius to do this stuff. It's just, you got to make sure you do what you can do. Never use emails to communicate sensitive information. Check your credit report on a regular basis. Britt's also going to talk about that. Be careful using public Wi-Fi. I mentioned already, use wireless security at home. Your internet provider can give you security at your home through their service, but some people don't know about that. They don't really promote it all that much. You know, like they want you to buy the next package of more channels or something, but they do provide security, and I have it on mine. Don't use obvious passwords. This is one of the things I hate. I hate the password game. I've gone into different situations where people will have their password on a sticky note under their drawer or something, or sometimes in the drawer, you know. And that's why password managers are a pretty good thing nowadays. You know, they're pretty inexpensive, and if you're like me, I've got 4 pages of passwords for all the different things that I do, and I don't want to have to change them all. You know, the password managers is a really good tool. I don't sell that. I just know it's a good way to do things. Okay. So let's see. How am I doing here? What time you got, Britt?
It's about 7 till.
It's about 7 till? Okay, I'm going to try to wrap this up here in the next few minutes. So I talked to you a little bit about the business part of it. There's viruses and hacking, and employee practices are really important if you're a business person. The devices we talked about a little bit. Sometimes disgruntled people, when they leave a place of employment, they'll try to take data with them if they're dishonest. I'm going to get going here. Past these slides, I want to get to this one other point. Just give me a second, because this presentation is an hour. So this identity theft is the #1 complaint. It's actually more than 15 years now. I have to update that, 16. And if you look at this slide, you can see it happens to all different age groups, even little children. I have a client up in Michigan, and his daughter was getting ready to go to college and went to apply for a student loan and got denied, and they couldn't figure out why. And so they did the little investigation and found out that when the girl was 9 years old, somebody had opened up some credit cards in her name and a bank account in her name, and then of course they maxed them out and never paid them. But they didn't find out for 9 more years, because people don't tend to look at their children's credit files. So children are a big target right now. Okay, these are the stories I've already shared with you. Child identity theft is reported 140 to 400,000 children have their identity stolen each year. That's a lot of folks, right? Okay. Now, this is the last thing I'm going to talk about. This is educational to me. As you heard in the introduction, I do employee benefits, and one of those benefits is an identity theft protection plan, right? They offer it here at Princeton. Most people, they buy something because they heard about it on a radio ad or a television ad, and they don't really know what the products do. Some people think that they're protected because there's something on their homeowner's insurance. So I'm going to explain the 3 kinds. So resolution. Resolution is a product that will help you go through the process. They'll guide you to the right websites, to the right agencies with information on how to contact them and, file all the different reports and things that you need to do, to dispute all of this. So that's good. It's a help because most people don't know what to do. They don't know who to call or where to go. Reimbursement is the kind of product that you would have on your homeowner's insurance. There's a rider. It's an identity theft insurance rider, and it'll pay up to, say, $25,000 for losses because of an identity theft. So I always say this: how many times can you file insurance claims before they decide they don't want to insure you anymore? So I don't like that approach. Restoration is the best approach. What restoration means by definition is they put it back the way it was before it happened, right? So whatever you buy, it's got to have restoration in it, or it's not complete. Okay? And so the product I saw absolutely does have that. It gets very complicated and time-consuming, and it's very stressful. I'm going to tell you one more quick story. There was, this business down off of 275 over here, TQL, Total Quality Logistics. There was a person there. There was this girl I was talking about earlier. She worked there. When they found out that she had felonies, warrants out for her arrest, they wouldn't allow her in the building. She could not go to work anymore. She's a young mother of 2 kids. So that story just keeps getting worse. Every element makes it worse. Imagine the stress and lack of peace that this woman had in this situation. It's a horrible thing. So if you have a product that monitors your personal identifiers, which most of them do that at least, you get alerts when something happens, right? So this event that happened to this young lady was someone used her identity when they got arrested. So now there's a criminal record on file in the courthouse. Make sure that your monitoring services include that kind of thing. So there's a lot to it. There are a lot of different ways that you need to look at this. So that's kind of the thing that I wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of, because there's, a dozen identity theft products on the market now? And they're not all the same, and they don't all work all that well, but people figure that they got to do something, so they buy the least expensive one. And that's not always the good way to do things, right? So I went through all the definitions there, and this is very interesting. This is how big identity theft is. The IRS made an announcement a couple years back that says if you're an employer and you pay for an identity theft product for your employees, it becomes a non-taxable item. So like with your benefits, some of those things, they count as income, the value of that, and you pay taxes on that, right? They're saying that you don't have to pay taxes on that amount of money if your employer pays for it. They're incentivizing the employer to do it for your benefit, and then the employer gets to write it off as a tax write-off, right? Because it's a benefit that they paid for. That's how big the problem is. Okay. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. If you all have any questions, you feel free. Yes, sir. Yeah, you can resolve that, but that's really Britt's area of expertise. So I'm going to let him come on up here now and let him answer that in more detail for you. Whoop. Go ahead, sir.
Ron.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, great job. Yeah, I mean, if there's fraud that happens, like, in the thing about with the kids, with this happening with young kids, they know it's going to be years before it gets discovered.
That's right.
So you're going to have to file an identity theft report. You're going to have to file a police report. You have to file a report with the FTC. And if you know who did it, and unfortunately this is really bad, but in many cases it's a family member that does this to people. And you might have to press charges against them too, if you know who that is. It breaks my heart that there are times people come to me and they say, hey, this, my mom did this to me, and I don't want to press charges against my mom, so so in that case, the only way you can really get rid of some of the debts, if it's truly in your name and you don't want to press charges, and sometimes you end up having to settle that stuff up and pay it, but that can be a real problem. So, but you can get it cleared off your name, absolutely. So you have to go through a few steps, but it can definitely be done. Yeah. So credit. So here's the thing. Credit reports. Nowadays your credit report is being used somewhat as your adult report card. It affects every part of your financial life. It's not just when you want to buy a car or get a credit card, or if you want to buy a house or buy a business or get a business loan, that kind of thing. It now affects every part of your financial life. It affects your ability to get a job. Many employers will pull credit reports, and if there are issues with your credit, it could actually cost you the opportunity to get a job. If there are two people applying for a job and one has good credit and the other one has not so good credit, guess what? They'll probably take the person with the better credit. Unfortunately, the way our system is set up, a lot of employers view that as a character indicator, which I don't agree with. I don't think because maybe life happened to you, or if someone stole your identity or something like that, that somehow you're of less character. Or if you got sick and couldn't work for a little bit, or divorces and things like that happen to people. So it's unfortunate that that's affecting so many people in that way. It affects your auto and homeowners insurance rates. If you have rough credit or derogatory credit on your credit report, you'll pay possibly 70 to 100% more for your auto and homeowners insurance premiums. It affects your premiums more than your driving record, which is just amazing to me. If I have a great driving record, why should I be paying more for my auto insurance, right? But what they found is that people that have rougher credit tend to turn in more claims. They tend to turn everything in. They have less money to fall back on, that sort of thing. It affects your ability to rent apartments. It affects your ability to get, life insurance, turning on basic utilities, things of that nature can be very expensive. So credit is very important. And what I find is a lot of people have difficulty no one teaches you, like when I got out of school, the reason I became kind of a credit nerd is not because I just wanted to go study Fico Scores and credit reports, but I got out of school. I had great parents. They did a great job. They loved me. They provided for me and everything, but they did not teach me a lot about money and how credit works. So as soon as I got out into the real world, I went out and got myself in as much debt as possible, as quickly as possible, and I got myself in trouble, got myself in over my head, and ended up ruining my credit, and had to go through a process of getting myself back on track. So through that, I learned how to do this, okay? So just so you know, if you are someone who has had life happen to you, or if you're like me and just for a period of time you were just kind of irresponsible and ignorant to how all this stuff works, just know it's temporary. It's not forever. You're not ruined forever. You do have to do something. You do have to, if you owe money, you're going to have to figure out a way to settle that up, and we have strategies to help you to do that. But you're not ruined forever. You can get back on track. I've personally done it. I know what it's like to have a terrible credit score, and if you're ever lonely and feel that no one cares, just miss a few payments on your car loan and your credit cards, and you'll get all kinds of calls and people wanting to know what's going on with you, right? So I've lived that, and I know how to get back on track, and I've done that, okay? So luckily 27 years ago, I messed up, and now I get to talk about it for the rest of my life and teach other people how to get back on track. So your credit, one of the biggest things I find a lot of people have challenges with is credit's somewhat one of those things that's kind of a chicken or egg kind of thing. People say, well, how do I get credit? How do I establish credit? Let's say I'm young, maybe I'm, just starting out, and I haven't had a mortgage, I haven't had a car loan, I haven't had credit cards. How do I get started? Or maybe I'm new to the country and I don't have a credit report. My credit report from my, from the country that I immigrated from, doesn't carry over to the U.S. necessarily. So How do I get started? Well, there's a couple of different things that we do in the banking business to help people establish credit. One of them would be, one of the easiest ways, if you're fortunate enough to have a relative or a parent that happens to have established credit themselves, they can add you as an authorized user. This is something that I did for both of my sons. When they turned 18, I added them as an authorized user on one of my credit cards that I've had open for many years, has a decent limit. I don't use very much of that limit, so and it's been established since like 2006. As soon as I added my sons to those cards, that immediately established a trade line on their credit report. And that history from my account went on their credit report and instantaneously gave them credit, gave them an actual credit score, and it
more now.
yeah. So, and then eventually they were able to, get their own credit card and get a car loan and things of that nature. The other thing we do in the banking world to help people establish credit is we can do something called a secured credit card. A secured credit card is when you come in and you put money into a savings account or a CD, and the bank will hold that as collateral, but they'll issue you a credit card with a line of credit, and it's secured by the deposit that you put into the bank. Well, that instantly puts a trade line on your credit report. You don't have to have any previous credit in order to do that. You don't have to have good credit. So if you're reestablishing because life happened and maybe you had a bankruptcy or a foreclosure or you had some issues and you need to reestablish credit, you can use a secure credit card. It's pretty much a guaranteed issue kind of thing as long as you don't have fraud in your check systems and things of that nature. So that's a way that we have a lot of kids start out, and people that want to reestablish, they can use secured credit cards. There are also loans that financial institutions offer called credit builder loans. Credit builder loans are basically where you come in and you make a deposit into a savings account every month at a certain time, and they'll treat that as though that's a loan payment, and they'll just let that account build up, and after 12 months, they'll give you the money, okay? But they put that history on a credit report for you, help you to build your credit, okay? So those are some of the biggest challenges for a lot of people. Is like, how do I get credit? I don't have any, Nobody will give me credit because I don't have any. Well, how do you do that, right? Well, those are a few of the options that you can do for that. And I'm a big fan of monitoring your credit. So here's the thing about credit. I can give you just recently, just this week, I had a borrower who's trying to buy a house, and unfortunately, his wife passed away about a year ago, and she had a business that, and she had some credit cards and stuff with that business. And the credit bureaus, there was a credit account that she had, and it was part of her estate and part of her business that she owned. Well, because of the fact that he was inheriting, her assets and so forth, they took a credit card that was in her business's name, and they put it on his credit report, even though he was never on that account. That dropped his credit scores probably 50 or 60 points because that account was showing delinquent because it's going through, settling her estate and everything. So that affected his interest rate on his mortgage that he's trying to obtain. At first, he was actually turned down for the mortgage because of it, but through some exceptions and so forth, we were still able to get it done. But it does affect, the interest rate. So, 25 basis points, 30, 0.5% or so on a mortgage over 30 years, on $200,000 or $300,000 can turn into a lot of money. So it's a really good idea to monitor your credit and understand what is being said about you. Like I said, it's being used for a lot of things, and it can cost you a lot of money. The other thing too is I don't think a lot of people realize how much their credit score can actually affect, their day-to-day life. I don't know that they understand how much it could be costing them. I show an example in many of my presentations of a person that has a 580 credit score and what they're paying on their mortgage and their car loans and their insurances and their credit cards and so forth. And they're paying a lot more because, having a lower credit score. And if they would just work with me to raise their credit score even just 100 points to like 680. Credit scores, FICO credit scores range from 300 to 850. And a good credit score is usually between 720, 720 and higher, or 740 or higher, really. If you have over a 740, you're pretty much just showing off. You don't really get any better deal over 740. But if you could just raise a 580 credit score to like 680, by going through some, checking what's on there, making sure things are accurate, paying down. I'm going to give you some strategies for raising your credit score here in just a moment. But if a person with a 580 credit score could just raise their score to 680, they could drop what they're paying for all of their, they can renegotiate their mortgage, their car loan, they can get better insurance rates, they can lower credit card rates, things of that nature, and it could save them as much as $500 or $600 a month just by being able to get a better deal. And I don't know about you all, but $500 or $600 goes a long way. You wonder why some people have all this margin in their life and they're able to, they have money to save in their 401k, they have money to go on vacation and do all kinds of fun stuff. And you wonder why some people have struggle, to be able to just live day to day. A lot of times credit scores are just making a big difference on that. The difference between paying, 3 or 4% on a car loan versus 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 because of your credit score. It makes a big difference in the monthly payments.
That information right there was worth the price of admission.
Well, there you go.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. So, so what are some of the ways that you can improve if you have credit now and you want to, number one, you need to be kind of checking it. You can check it for free every year from annualcreditreport.com. If you go to annualcreditreport.com, you can get one credit report for free from all 3 of the main credit bureaus, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. It's very important that you check all 3 because they do not share information with each other, okay? So you want to know what's going on. If you've never checked them, pull all 3, all at once and make sure they're all reporting accurate. Unfortunately, there are errors all the time on credit reports. Anytime there are humans involved in a process, there's a chance for mistakes, right? So you want to initially check all 3, and then after that, once you're maintaining, if you don't want to pay for some sort of a monitoring plan, and I'll tell you, there are so many free monitoring things out there. A lot of the credit cards, a lot of your checking accounts with banks and financial institutions will provide free monitoring for you and give you alerts and things of that nature. Legal Shield's a great option too. They help you with credit and monitoring too. But there's a lot of ways that you can keep on track on top of this. But if you don't want to do any of that, then at least pull your credit reports from annualcreditreport.com. And once you've kind of got a handle on it, then maybe you can just, like the next year, you can just pull one at the beginning of the year with like Equifax, one in the middle of the year from TransUnion, and one toward the end of the year from Experian, just to give yourself, kind of like understand what's being said and see if there's any changes and that sort of thing. So let's talk a little bit about what your FICO scores, how do they derive your FICO scores? Well, the way they do your FICO scores, they take what is reported from your credit accounts, okay, on your credit bureaus. There's actually 2 products that lenders use. They use the credit report, which is what they report the data, and then there are credit scoring models. The credit scoring models use the data that's reported on the credit reports, and they run that through an algorithm, and they come up with that 3-digit number, usually between 300 to 850. Now there are some other versions. There are many versions of credit scores. Some of them go from 250 to 900. There's Vantage scores, which are different from FICO scores. And one of the gentlemen that I just did a loan for here recently, he was like, "My Vantage score says it's this." I'm like, "Well, the FICO scores that mortgage companies pull, well, they're slightly different. So they're always wondering, why are they different? Why are they different from what I see on my monitoring plan? Well, there are all kinds of versions. The credit card industry has their own card score. The insurance industry has an insurance score. The auto industry has an auto score. Did I already say that? Card scores, auto scores, insurance scores, and you have all kinds of different versions of FICO, okay? FICO Classic, FICO 4, FICO 8, FICO 9, FICO 10. There's FICO 11. There are all these different versions, okay? So anyway, the way they derive these, 35% of your FICO score is based on pay history. So paying on time is very important. So they take a look at that section, and they look at how many accounts do you have open, how many have been paid as agreed, how many have had delinquency, what was the severity of the delinquency, was it just a 1 times 30, out of having, 10 accounts on one account, or, were you chronically 30, 60, 90 days late, have you had bankruptcies, judgments, liens, foreclosures, things of that nature. That all affects that 35% category. The next section of your, and this is the area that I can help people the most and where most people can make the biggest impact quickly, is it's 30% of the FICO score, and it's called amounts owed or debt utilization, okay? So what that is a measure of how much available credit you have and how much of it have you utilized. So let's talk specifically about credit cards, because this really has the biggest impact. So let's say you have 5 credit cards with $10,000 available over the 5 cards. If you have them all charged up to $9,999, you're going to have a lower score even if you've never missed a payment, okay? As a rule of thumb, you never want to use more than 20 to 30% of what is available to you, okay? I would prefer that you pay your credit cards off every month, but I know some people do revolve balances and so forth. But this is really a very simple math equation that you can manage this very easily by simply, if you have a $5,000 credit card with a $4,000 balance, you can simply pay the credit card down to half or to 20 to 30%, and you'll probably see a big jump in your credit score pretty much the next month as soon as as that reports to the credit bureau, okay? So that's really key. I see a lot of people that, we pull their credit report and they're like, believe it or not, your interest rate on your mortgage will be more if you're at 719 versus 720 or higher. And I see people sometimes, they're just a near miss of 720. And I'm like, okay, a couple of these credit cards are kind of at their limits. Will you go, can you pay these down real quick? And then I'll do a repull and I'll do a rapid rescore of this. And a lot of times it gives them another 20 or 30 points. So that can really make a big difference. The next portion of your FICO score is new credit. You don't want to open a lot of new accounts in a short period of time, okay? Only open new credit as needed. So when you go shopping at Christmas time, okay, don't open up every single one of those accounts at the stores, the department stores, where they say, oh, you save 20% if you open up a card today. Okay, you don't necessarily want to do that. Each one of those is an inquiry and a new account, and until they're 12 months old, it's going to affect your credit scores, okay? The next portion of your FICO score is what they call length of time accounts have been established. So they want to see that you've had accounts open for a long time, but they also do a measure of the average age of all of your accounts, which kind of ties back into that new credit. So if you go and open 3 or 4 new accounts in a short period of time, well, that's going to lower the average age of all of your accounts on your credit report. So only open them as needed and keep accounts open as long as possible. Now, I'm not saying keep your mortgage forever. Pay it off as quick as you can, okay? Car loan, pay it off as quick as you can. But like say, that credit card you got in college, it's not really the best interest rate and everything, but it's really kind of helping your credit score. Keep it open, okay? Use it just enough to show activity, okay? And the last portion of your FICO score is what they call loan mix. They love to see that you've had experience managing different types of debt, okay? They love that you have a mortgage and a car loan and a student loan and credit cards, okay? So it's kind of an I love debt score is really what it is. So, I'm not necessarily trying to get you to get into debt. I actually affirm a debt-free lifestyle, okay? But if you can pay cash for houses and cars and all that sort of thing, I want you to at least keep 1 or 2 open credit cards, use them just enough to show activity, pay your Netflix with it or pay your Amazon Prime with it, pay it off every month, just to maintain that high credit score so that when you go to buy a business, like you might need a building one day, right? You might need to get a business line of credit or something like that. And, unfortunately, the way the financial world works, you pretty much they do it based on credit scores, okay? And, having established credit. Obviously, auto insurance and homeowners insurance and all that other stuff that I was just mentioning before. So you kind of get to play the game, okay? So hopefully that's been good information. Hopefully that's been helpful. I'm happy to, answer any questions, or I'll certainly hand out my cards and so forth if anybody wants to, sit down with me one-on-one or talk about, how do we get people established credit-wise, and how do we, buy a house, how do we get a business loan, that sort of thing. I can certainly give you coaching on that. Yes, sir. So if you have money in your checking account, right, and you pull a bunch of cash out, so you make a big withdrawal, it's not necessarily, you're allowed to use your money for whatever you wish. I think they have more of an issue if you bring in a duffel bag full of cash to deposit, is usually where they get nervous. Is where that, there are some BSA laws and anti-money laundering laws and things like that come into play with that. But as far as, if you want to pull, $1,000 to go, buy some new, whatever, sporting equipment, or you can certainly do that. No one's going to really question how you want to spend your money. A lot of folks use, their debit cards, and they use checks, and they get cashier's checks for large amounts. It is just a safer way, to pay for things. I mean, it's kind of dangerous to walk around, with a whole bunch of cash on you, that kind of thing. So, any other questions? Well, I appreciate your time tonight. You guys have a great evening.
One moment here.
Yeah. Free hat, free pizza. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and they've passed new laws that have stopped a lot of that activity on college campuses, where they can't give, if you're under 21, they can't do that kind of thing to folks anymore. So, and a lot of people, when you're 19 or 20 years old, you think, oh, great, they're going to give me a $500 credit card, and then of course they go and hang out with their buddies and buy some rounds of, and then they think, oh, they don't pay it, and then it ends up a charge off on their credit report, and later on they have to figure out how to get that straightened out. And even if you have done that, it's not permanent. There are strategies to get that paid off and get reestablished. We can help with that.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share this evening. I'm going to talk about a feature that we have in the Princeton City School District called Gaggle. And this is a program that we purchased in January of 2022, and we fully implemented it for the start of the second semester during last school year. I will briefly go over some of the features of Gaggle, as well as what we use it for, and then most importantly, how we respond to the information that we gather using Gaggle. I will also revisit this topic at our November 15th Parent Ed series, as the theme for that evening is digital citizenship. Certainly this content fits in nicely with both tonight's event and the one in November. So tonight's topics, just briefly go over what Gaggle is, what we monitor with Gaggle, the types of reports that we receive as building administrators and educators, the response that we have as the Princeton City School District to address the content that we screen through Gaggle, and then our current Gaggle numbers, without going into the weeds too much about specific content, but I do want to go over how many reports we've received and our response rate. So what is Gaggle? I do have a brief video here, about 90-second video from the Gaggle website, and before we get into that, two of the more prominent users of Gaggle in the state of Ohio are Princeton City School District and of course Cincinnati Public Schools. Both have adopted and used Gaggle as a safety tool in their respective school districts. Let me see here.
In describing Gaggle in a couple words, it's easy for me. Life-saving, life-changing, family-connected.
Gaggle to our district is another set of hands that we don't have. It allows us to be able to do a multitude of jobs and to keep our children safe when we don't have the manpower to do that ourselves.
Security and support are the two biggest words that come to mind for me.
I would say life-changing, I would say extraordinary, and I would say that the service is truly a partnership.
Gaggle partners with districts to help our kids stay safe and make good choices and know that they are seen and supported by the adults in their school system.
If I had to describe Gaggle in a few words, I would refer to you as our online guardian.
Gaggle is an important tool in your toolbox supporting school safety and student mental health.
I think of Gaggle as a partner and not a vendor. They're a partner with us in educating kids and supporting them.
If I were to describe Gaggle, I would describe it as powerful. I also think a word I would use is invisible. And I say that because the best technology isn't talked about. It's there for your protection. It's run seamlessly.
Like a warm blanket over the district. Just keeping kids safe, caring, and helping students with issues before they really become issues.
So as you can see in the video, over 1,500 school districts in the United States using Gaggle. I definitely agree with the comments that are being shared by all of the administrators and educators in the video. But certainly I like the comment about it being an extra set of hands, because we're certainly detecting information through Gaggle that we wouldn't otherwise. And we're able to address some safety concerns that we wouldn't necessarily be aware of in any other way. Looks like this is playing again, so 1 second here. So how Gaggle works. So 4 main principles within Gaggle is that we are prevention focused. We're able to stop tragedies in real time, because as something is being submitted or content is being transmitted through electronic means by our student body, we're able to detect that, and it's reported in real time. And we get around-the-clock alerts. So I've received Gaggle alerts before at 11:35 at night on a Sunday, and we've had those opportunities to address those emergencies. We're able to anticipate with Gaggle as well by proactively identifying and supporting struggling students. We're able to guide our students by encouraging and expecting good digital citizenship, and then able to support and promote student mental health, because through quite a few Gaggle reports that we've had, we've been able to connect students with the necessary services and supports that they need and that they deserve. So what Gaggle monitors? We look very closely at our student Chromebooks. Every student grades K through 12 has a district-issued Chromebook. So through Gaggle, we are able to filter any content that the students may use on their Chromebook. So some examples would be web searches, documents. All students have a Google Docs account and a Google Drive account, so any content within that Google suite is screened for keywords and for suspicious content. Emails and online chat. Many of our students frequently use Google Hangouts, Google Chat, so content through those platforms are also screened. I will say that it is highly sensitive software, and we're very glad and very fortunate that it is highly sensitive software, because we're able to ensure student safety and respond in a very rapid manner to content. So just to give an example, if a student mentions something about hitting others, even if it's part of a story, that's flagged as violence. That gives us an opportunity. It doesn't necessarily mean the student's in danger or the student is in trouble, but it gives the adult, the educator, the administrator, an opportunity to follow up just to get a deeper level of context and then decide whether it is a legitimate concern or if it's a non-issue. Also, content from any personal device that gets plugged in to a Chromebook for charging. We've run into this quite a bit, where a student maybe had something they shouldn't have had on their phones, but then they go to plug it into their Chromebook, and that's all of a sudden uploaded to their Chromebook and flagged within Gaggle. So there are 2 types of Gaggle reports that we get, and I'll talk about who receives those reports in a moment. But the 2 different types are what we consider questionable content. That's what you would consider the inappropriate image, inappropriate words, but then the possible student situation. Though both categories are very serious, those possible student situation instances are ones that we have to respond to right away. Those are instances like threats. Those are instances like someone making mention of self-harm or mental health concerns. Those possible student situations are given top priority. So some examples of categories of how content is flagged: of course, self-harm and suicide ideation, violence toward others, harassing comments, and then that explicit sexual content that sometimes gets flagged and screened to us. So our response, and I will have to give kudos to our district team, our building level leaders, district level leaders, just for the level of responsiveness. We've made it a priority to follow up day of when we get the report, and depending on how severe it is, we're following up right away when that occurs. So we have building assignments already established within the system. So let's say that a 9th grader has a Gaggle report. So that 9th grader's Gaggle report comes to me, Student Services Director. I get to see all of those for the district. Goes to the building level principal at the high school, goes to the 9th grade principal, but then also to some other district personnel. There are a couple of reasons behind that. The first is just to make sure that we're fully aware as a district of what's going on, but more importantly, multiple adults being able to view that report gives us a greater chance to respond. One of those 5 or 6 team members will be able to respond in a very timely manner. So we do get those alerts through email. If it is a possible student situation that is a high-level alert, we are getting calls immediately from Gaggle as well to make sure that someone is following up. They have a setting in their system at Gaggle to where if we do not respond or answer the calls in a timely manner, that they're contacting first responders and taking emergency action. I will say that has not been an issue because our staff have done a great job of following up immediately in certain situations. We do follow up with every student that is tied to an alert, and we document in the system how we followed up, what actions were taken, or even if it's a non-issue, there is an option to check that it's been a non-issue or that the issue or threat has been addressed. And again, as I shared before, the alerts vary from least extreme to most extreme, but we respond and treat all of them like legitimate concerns. Our Gaggle reports to date, I checked before we came here this evening, is we've had 72 reports just for this school year since August, and happy to announce that all have been resolved. So there are no pending Gaggle reports at this time. So this has been a valuable tool for us in screening content. If it saves a life, it's very much a worthwhile venture. We've been able to connect students, like I said, with mental health services and supports that they've needed. In some instances, we've had to take disciplinary action due to the nature of content. We've had to involve law enforcement as needed, in very few cases, but as needed. But our level of response has been significant, and we will continue to monitor Gaggle and respond. Any questions about the Gaggle system or how we respond, what it flags? I'm happy to answer any questions. That is a very good question. So it works if they are at home using their district-issued devices. So if they're using their Google Suite at home or web searching using their Chromebooks at home. Anything on a personal device that is used at home, it does not screen. However, what we've run into, like I said before, with many of our students is when they plug that device into their Chromebook, then everything is uploaded. Yes. That is a good question. I'm honestly not 100% sure. I may have to consult with our tech director on that piece. Usually when our students do plug something into the computer and it trips a Gaggle report, it's usually an inappropriate TikTok that has been shared or something from Instagram or an inappropriate image. Well, I do thank you all for your time. We will revisit this topic again at our November 15th Parent Ed series. So, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Got a handout for you guys too, before you run off.